and sort of have a look at, so just so that she can go through the flow, and then we'll sort of use those 2 times as a breakout. So, but yeah, so over to you, Tilly.
Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Today I will be speaking through social media marketing. As Vicky mentioned, if you're able to keep questions until certain points of the training where I've put in time to go through any concerns or barriers that you faced, or any questions you have on what we've covered so far. I will be looking at my monitor as well, so if it looks as if I'm not looking at you, I do apologise. So let's go straight through it. There is quite a lot that we're going to be covering today, and that includes looking at the power of social media and why it's such a good tool for organisations like Cannes to be using. We're also going to be talking through the different platforms and introducing them, before speaking about understanding and knowing your audience and how it differs for each of those platforms. I'm then going to talk through the structure of posts and how to put together a good caption for social media. And with that, we'll be talking about how to get the basics right. So the really crucial points that you should take away from today to make sure you're writing engaging captions. As I mentioned before, we'll then have some time for reflection and any questions based on what we've gone through by that point, before we then start to go into a bit more detail and talk about the tone of voice for each of the platforms. I then have 2 activities for us. Hope that you'll find them interesting and engaging. The first one is I'll be showing captions for posts from Cannes, and I would like you to guess which platform it's been shared to. And so that will be putting in all of the learning we've gone through this morning about structure of posts and tone of voice, and you can guess which platform the posts have been posted to. And then we have another activity to again put everything into practice, where you'll spend some time writing a caption for social media. So hopefully that will be an engaging way of putting everything that we've spoken to into practice. In the final part of the training, we'll then be going through scheduling posts. Even though this is the responsibility of only a few members of the Cannes team, I think it's important to have a really brief overview. We'll also speak about analytics and kind of understanding a bit of the data that we receive from social media. Before we talk about communications calendar and the importance of campaign awareness days and sort of the process and things to remember when putting together a campaign for those awareness days. And finally, we have a glossary of terms for you all as well, so you can take it away from today. So if there's any definitions or words that you come across, hopefully you'll find it useful to kind of have something you can refer to in the future. So firstly, I'm going to just speak a bit about why organisations would use social media. It's a really, really powerful tool for digital marketing because it allows organisations like Cannes to tell your story to a much, much wider audience without needing to spend a lot of budget on doing so. And the potential impact is huge and it spans the entire organisation. So there's potential to gain new supporters and partners, raise funds as well, whilst also raising awareness of your mission, your values, services. It's a great opportunity to engage with your supporters as well, whilst amplifying the voice of partners or customers. It's great to drive traffic to your website, particularly through linking to your website in each of the posts. And you can also improve your online search results, humanize the organisation by giving it a voice, and it's a great way to monitor the conversations around your organisation as well. So as you can see, the potential power of social media is huge and it really does span the entire organisation. So what actually is social media? Well, social media refers to any app or website that allows for open communication, interaction, and content sharing. And whilst most platforms are unique, they do follow quite a similar structure. So most of them would provide a profile, which is specific to the individual or the organisation, a homepage where you're able to see all of the content from people that you follow. Most platforms will also have an explore page, and this is where you can find content posted by people you don't follow and who don't follow you. So anybody really. can be on your Explore page. And most platforms will also have space for any notifications. And the notifications will likely be that somebody can follow your page, like your posts, comment on them, or share them to their own platforms and pages. As I'm sure you know, there are many different social media platforms available. However, we're going to be talking about these 3 today because these are the platforms that CAN uses. So that is Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So despite the similarity in structure for all of these platforms, each of them does target a very slightly different audience. And that means that at some point, when you understand this audience, you can adjust your content to make sure that you're really providing content that's relevant to the people you're speaking to. And that would really improve your engagement. So it's a really important process to understand who you're speaking to. For Facebook, it's likely that you're going to be engaging with a slightly older demographic, and you'd be doing so by sharing more personal content. So I won't read everything that's on the screen, but 36% of Facebook's audience are aged 45 and older, and that is quite different to the other platforms. So it is important to remember who you're reaching. And I don't know if any of you remember when Facebook sort of first started, but it was definitely this platform for connecting people, all across the world. So with that in mind, you're more likely to share a bit more in-depth personal content on Facebook. And that is quite different to Twitter, where you're likely to be reaching a much younger audience and you'd be sharing more news-based content. So again, I won't read everything that's there, but in 2020, over half of all tweets shared in that year came from people who were aged 25 and younger. So that's a huge majority of all of the posts shared in that year. So it is, as you can see already, quite different to the audience on Facebook. And interestingly, nearly 50% of users in the USA turn to Twitter for news updates. So hopefully you can already see, again, even not just in the audience, but in the content that's being shared, Twitter is much more news-based and kind of direct, whereas Facebook is that more personable, more personal content. Again, this is very different to LinkedIn, where it's a much more professional platform. So the kind of second biggest demographic for your audience on LinkedIn is likely to be people aged 35 to 54, but 45% of LinkedIn users are in upper management level positions. And 49 million people use LinkedIn to search for jobs every week. So that is really different. You wouldn't have the number of people searching for vacancies on Twitter or Facebook. So LinkedIn is quite unique in that sense, that it is this much more professional platform for networking, sharing vacancies, etc. So although your audience might be different, the structure of the posts that you'd be sharing would actually be quite similar, particularly for Facebook and LinkedIn. So that makes it easier to write the captions because they're likely to follow quite a similar structure. You would start with your opening line, and it's really important to consider the opening line quite carefully because on Facebook and LinkedIn, only the first few lines of text is visible at first, and people actually have to click on read more to be able to see the entire caption. So it's really important to try to grab your audience's attention within the first line. And you can do that by asking a question, by summarizing the entire post so that you can easily see if it's something you're going to be interested in reading. So it's something you really do need to consider quite carefully. And then you'd move on to the main body of the text, which is where you can provide all of the details. If it's an event, you can say the date and the time, where it's taking place, what might be happening at the event, etc. So that's your space to really provide all of the details you want people to know. You would then have what we call a call to action, which is essentially what you want the audience to do with the information you're giving them. And that can really range. It could be you want them to visit CAN's website or contact a particular CAN colleague, or it could be, the same for an external organization. but it's really important to always have one in every single post so that people know exactly what they need to do or how they need to sign up for something. And then right at the end of your post, you would have hashtags. And hashtags are really, really important. They shouldn't be overlooked when putting a caption together because it essentially allows your work and your organization to be linked to themes. So it can situate your organization and kind of provide a context for where you fit in. But it also directs your content to people who are really interested in that subject. Because if I'm particularly interested in, let's say, mental health or well-being, I can follow those hashtags. So the majority of the posts that I'm seeing are all linked to that theme. So if Can uses those hashtags and it comes to me and it's an interest of mine, I'm much more likely to engage with the content, like it, comment it, or reshare. So it's a really great way of kind of making sure that your content is actually reaching the people who care about those subjects. So always try to remember to include hashtags in your posts. Twitter is slightly different because you have a 280 character limit for every single post. So the structure is ever so slightly different. With Twitter, your opening line, either if you're providing some context, it needs to be really short because you don't have the space to have a long opening line providing lots of context, or the opening line needs to go sort of straight into the main body and detail of the text. Another difference for Twitter is that your hashtags could go into the main body of text as well. And that's helping to reduce the number of characters because instead of having a long list of hashtags at the end, you can just put a hashtag in front of a keyword within the main body. So you're only adding in one character rather than lots by having a list at the bottom, but you're still able to direct your content to people who care about the themes that Can works on. Another difference for Twitter is that your call to action can be shortened. So, for example, on LinkedIn, if you're linking people to your website, you might say, for more information, please visit, and then you would include the link. Whereas on Twitter, you might not have that many characters, so you can just include the link without an explanation, or you can do a very short one, like on the left of the screen, it just says book via, and then it gives the link. So those are the kind of main differences between Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter in terms of the structure of how to put together a caption. Now I'm just going to go through my kind of top tips for getting the absolute basics right for writing a caption for social media. Firstly, try to keep the captions as short as possible. You know, we're in an age where everything is immediate and quick, and people are just scrolling and scrolling. So they don't really have the time to read a long caption, and if they see a long caption, they might just scroll past it. So it's really important to try to keep it as short as possible. And particularly because you'll have a call to action that links people to your website or to a Can colleague, they have a space where they can find more information as well. So your caption on social media, it doesn't need to provide all of the details, but enough for us to know if we're interested and where we can go for a bit more information. So if you can, try to keep it to around 2 to 3 small paragraphs. It's also quite important to write within the first person. So within your post, you might say we provide or we have visited rather than Can provides or Can has visited. And that helps again to really humanize the organization and have that good voice. If you can, it's a good idea to use short sentences so it's really direct, really clear and concise messaging. And that can mean maybe you need to use bullet points to break up a long list, but that makes it just easier for somebody to read when they are scrolling through. It's also a great idea to include quotations where you can and where it's appropriate. And that could be from colleagues, could be from members or customers, partners even, you know, whoever is relevant to the post. But this can really help with engagement because you're hearing directly from the people involved rather than hearing somebody else speak about it. it's really, really important to try to always use an image with a post. There are social media platforms that exist where captions aren't visible at first. So a lot of social media is image led. It's really, really important when you're putting together a caption to always use an image. As I mentioned before, having a really clear call to action is essential. A post should really only have one link, hyperlink, rather than lots of them. If you are providing multiple ways that people can find more information, just try to keep it as concise and clear as possible. And if you are mentioning anybody, any organisation or individual within the post, remember to tag them. And that will help with engagement too, because they'll be more likely to share it, like it, or comment on it. But that is the responsibility of the colleagues who are actually publishing the post. So if you're just writing a caption, then that wouldn't concern you. And again, as I mentioned before, always remember to use the hashtags. It is really, really important, and it will really help with engagement. So I hope that you found that helpful so far. At this moment, I wanted to just give some time for reflection. And if you can think about if you've come across any barriers or any concerns whilst writing captions for social media, or if you have any questions about anything that we've gone through so far, kind of wanted to give some space to you guys so that you can feel confident with writing captions before we move on to a bit more of the detail in a bit. So feel free to just turn your mic on and ask a question, or just have some time to reflect and then do so when you're ready.
Just to say, Tilly, so far I keep learning new stuff every time you do it, even though we go through it, and I'm like, oh yeah. That's really good. Thank you so far. It's really, I haven't got anything to raise. Other than, actually, I did make a note. I think it's a really good thing about you forget that, and I forget it every time I use social media, about grabbing the attention in the first line, because it does, like you say, it disappears, doesn't it, when it goes in the feed. And sometimes, I have to keep going back and think, oh God, yeah, I forgot that, when it comes up, because I've lost my so it's really critical, isn't it, to get that hook in that first line.
Yeah. And when you think of that, it can change the order of what you're writing.
Yeah.
When you do consider the opening line. And kind of quite a simple way of doing that, if you're a bit stuck for writing a caption, particularly with the opening line, is asking a question. That's what I found to be the easiest way to start, because the main body of the text where you're providing the details, you'll probably have that information, so that will be quite easy to put together. It's normally the opening line that can take a bit of time, but if you do turn it into a question, often I found that makes it a bit easier.
You've got some hands up, so I think Karen was first.
Sure.
Hi everyone. Vicky, I was about to say the same thing about the opening statement. We do often bury our gold, and that's how I describe it, really. And people aren't going to read it. It's sad but true. And it's so important that we put whatever our ask is, or whatever we're the main thing, right at the top to grab someone's attention. And I had actually thought, oh, actually, no, that's really true. We have a heading, and that heading bit is so important, because that's the bit that I will always, when I'm being comms manager, I always come back to the heading last. I don't try and write the heading first. So I when I'm reviewing our comms stuff, I look at what we've written, and then I look at the heading, and I think it's better to try and do it that way round and write. So that's the bit where you're trying to really grab someone's attention, and it's got to be, something that is the real essence of it. It's quite a skill, actually. It's not, and I think there's whole I'm old, but in old journalistic terms, they used to actually have headline writers. They used to have people that was their job in newspapers, to write the headlines that grab people in. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of share how important it is for everyone to not to bury the gold, really. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, that's a
Thank
great point.
you.
Thank you.
Your next person, I think, was Sarah Jane.
On mute. Hello. Just from my point of view, I'm just thinking, I need time to think and create. I can't do it on the fly. It's not something that comes very naturally to me. So, and I need quite a bit of time. So on a busy day job, any tips on doing it quickly or doing it without overthinking it or whatever? I found Karen's tip in terms of writing the heading last quite useful, but for me, I have a very scattered brain, and actually trying to pull all that together at the side of my desk while I'm doing 10 other things is really hard.
Yeah, I would echo what Karen said. If you start with the main detail, so if it's an event, I'm sure you'll have the information of the date, the venue, what will be covered, so an agenda for that event. And then you'll likely have this call to action where it will say, you know where people need to go to sign up, whether it's a link on CAN's website or on an external organisation or an email. You'll have that information as well. That be really clear. To sign up, please do the following. You'll know the hashtags as well. It's just keywords relating to the themes of that post. So if it was an event that's in Bournemouth, you could do hashtag Bournemouth, hashtag conference, hashtag event, hashtag wellbeing, really sort of general terms linking to the main themes of what the post is about. And then really it's just that final first sentence, which you can do at the end, which I think is a great point. And if you do make it into a question, I have found that is easier. So if it was an event that is about or training that's on mental health and money, you could ask the question, is the cost of living crisis impacting your mental health? That could be the first line. And then straight away you're asking a question, so it's grabbing somebody's attention, but you're also linking it to really big themes, mental health, cost of living crisis. So you're providing that context. So anyone reading it, immediately they can answer and say, oh yes, that applies to me. I need to read more and I'll understand a bit more about what this training is on, where it's taking place and how I can sign up.
And I'd like to add to that. That's a really good idea, because when Sarah Jane, when you're saying like you're needing that inspiration, if you start with a question, it helps you then answer it and do the research and put some bits together. So that's a really good way of sort of starting. Okay, well, what is it that I'm trying to ask?
What we tend to do sometimes is say, like, I'm going to try and just use an example that I'm just pulling out of my head, not a real one. Come to our HR training. Now, that's not floating my boat, but actually it's like something like, do you need to keep your volunteers safe? Oh, well, hang on a minute. Oh, hello. We're putting some come to this. We're going to tell you how you can make sure that you have great policies in place to make sure that happens. So you're now grabbing the attention straight off, rather than, because I might not know I want to go to HR training. It's not top on my list, but I do want to keep my volunteers safe. So I'm going to read more than if I just saw, we're going to put this on. But so often I think it's important to say why we're doing it, like the information stations. The actual essence of that isn't come to the information session. It's an information station. Get my teeth in. It's actually, are you needing information? Do you need support on where to do review? Come to our, so we're not actually talking about we're running these information stations on these dates. It's actually, why I always think to myself, I have to make myself do it, everyone, by the way. It's not a natural thing. I think, why are we doing this? What is the point of this? Why are we doing this? And then I start there and work back from it. So I think that's that's what I'm learning as I'm going through my comms journey, because I'm learning every week, every day. I'm learning new stuff. So that's been a learning for me, and I just wanted to share that because I think it's quite important.
I think that's great, and I think that's something we want to explore in the writing workshops, because I think there's going to be some all of these techniques that it's really useful. But I'm just a bit worried about time. So
I'll shut up, Lizzie. I'll shut up.
We've got Hannah and then Rachel.
Okay, sure.
Hi, thanks. Just wanted to say the hashtag was a really good reminder, and the fact that it can go into the body of the tweet, that's really been helpful. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks. And then Rachel.
Mine was just about that sometimes I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but sometimes it's about sharing who and what who we're working with. We've had a really good meeting, and that I don't know, is there always a call to action? Is it to get them to look at our website? I'm just trying to think, because sometimes things aren't naturally in my mind. I've had a really good meeting, it feels a really good connection, and then I start to write stuff and I'm hands up, I'm just not this great at doing the social media bit, but I don't know, is everything got to have a call to action? That's the bit in terms of the structure that I just want to clarify.
Yeah, no, I do totally understand what you're saying, especially around meetings that you've had. It can be difficult to know what is the next step. But I think sometimes, particularly with those sorts of posts, there is going to be a bigger picture or a bigger reason as to why you're sharing it. So it is that partnership working, showcasing who kind of are closely working with, what are your kind of business priorities, and that will really come through in those kinds of posts. I mean, if you did happen to have information about the meeting on your website, then you can always link to it. Or if it was about a particular project, you could say more details to follow soon, if you knew that there was going to be more information coming. But you are right, if it's about an event that you've attended where there isn't really any information elsewhere, then the call to action isn't really going to be applicable. But it's understanding that is still worth posting because it is part of this bigger story and context that will come through.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Then we've got Andrew.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just saying, whenever I write something, I always just look at it, look back and just go, would that actually catch my attention? So it's a good way of just looking, what you've written. And if it doesn't, then okay, I need to go back and review. Is the kind of gold in that first statement? And that's a good way of just reflecting that. Yeah. If it doesn't catch your attention, then of course you need to just review it and try to rewrite it. So I just thought I'd add that.
That's a good one. That's what I do actually. Yeah. Cool. That's all. Sorry, go on, Tilly.
So was that everybody shared now?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everybody. So now we're going to talk a little bit about tone of voice for the different platforms. So I did sort of mention earlier that with Facebook, you're probably going to be sharing a bit more personal stories. And with that, you might have a bit more of an informal or friendly voice. So what does that actually look like in practice? It's probably going to mean using more informal text. So that could be abbreviations, rhetorical questions. You might even be using exclamation marks within your captions. You'll probably also be using quite hyperbolic, exaggerated adjectives and be sharing the more sort of personal stories. So I've got an example on the left of the screen from Can, and I won't read the entire caption, but I've highlighted and circled some of the points to kind of bring this tone of voice to life. So on Facebook, you might use words like fantastic, great or wonderful, those kinds of words, where on Twitter, you're not going to have the space to use those filler words. But on Facebook, it really does add to this sort of positive, friendly tone of voice. And you might have quite informal phrasing as well, like please come along, as opposed to please visit us. It's a different way of saying the same thing, but you can see that it is that more informal tone. And that is quite different to Twitter, where again we have this 280 character limit. So you are going to be much more direct, much more clear and concise, because you're only going to have the space to share the most important parts of your message. So it's going to be more about informing your followers. And on Twitter, a little bit more than other platforms, it's more common to share posts from other people. And a great way to kind of encourage other people to share your content is to make sure that you're tagging any individuals or organizations that you're mentioning. So again, on the right of the screen this time, I have an example from Can. And straight away, this caption goes into the kind of themes of this post and gives a bit of information. So the first very few words says, become a BCP book talker. So it's straight away going into the kind of the content rather than providing this quite long first line that provides a lot of context. And I've just highlighted there as well that you're tagging an organization. So you can see straight away the caption is much shorter, much clearer, and much more concise and direct. Again, this is different for LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, you're probably going to be sharing your industry credentials and expertise. And that means that you have the freedom to use much more formal language, particularly using full sentences without abbreviations or sort of acronyms. And LinkedIn, because you're reaching this kind of upper management level individuals and people who are professionals, it allows you the freedom to use quite specific terminology. So you can use sort of more, industry specific terms. And the kinds of content you would be sharing will probably be linked to the theme of employability to make sure that you are providing content that is relevant to your audience. So it's a great platform to share any training or voluntary opportunities, job vacancies, or any kind of events or conferences that Can might attend or put together. I've got another example on the left-hand side of the screen, and again, I've just circled the parts that are relevant to this tone of voice. So in this post, we're talking about statutory partners. So immediately you can see it is that more kind of industry formal language. And you can see that Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole is written out in full rather than BCP. And the theme on this post is safeguarding. So it is that more top level commitment for Can, formal language and full sentences, which can be quite different to on Twitter. You could not even have a sentence next to the call to action next to the link, or you might just have book via. So that is very different to the full sentences and the kind of polite tone of voice that you would use on LinkedIn. So now I'm going to show you posts from Can, which are all on the exact same event, but you can see within the opening line how this tone of voice is different for each of the platforms. So it will bring to life that even if a post is on the exact same content, the language you would use would change for each of the platforms that Can uses. So for Facebook, I'll just read the opening line out loud. We start with, want to learn about the fantastic free support available to charities and community groups across Dorset. For Twitter, it's a shorter version without these fantastic filler words. So it says, want to learn about support for hashtag charities and hashtag community groups covering hashtag Dorchester. So you can already see the difference. In Twitter, we're using hashtags throughout, and it is that shorter sentence, more direct, without those filler words. For LinkedIn, the opening line is quite different, and hopefully you'll be able to start to see this much more formal tone of voice come through. So the opening line for LinkedIn is, throughout autumn, we have been engaging in roadshows across Dorset to share the range of free support available for charities and community groups. So hopefully that makes it quite clear that even if a post is on the exact same content, the way that you would word the first opening line can change quite drastically. And even if your tone of voice that you use evolves over time, it's vital to try to stay consistent with those changes so that the voice is always clear and true to who Can is. Okay, so now I have the activity that I was talking about earlier. We've gone through the structure of the posts, the tone of voice, and now I'm going to have examples on the left-hand side of the screen from Can, and I'd like you to just turn on your mics and shout out which platform you think this may have been shared to. So look out for the language that's being used, the punctuation, phrasing. Is it really formal? Is it based on employability? Is it much more relaxed? And just shout out when you think you know what platform it might have been shared to.
Facebook.
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 Lots of Facebooks. Well done, absolutely right. You can tell by the exclamation mark in the first line and the kind of very informal phrasing. So it says, I'll just read part of it. It says, our network for supporting disability has got off to a flying start. So you probably wouldn't say got off to a flying start with LinkedIn. It's just a phrasing you probably wouldn't use because it's a bit more informal. So well done for everyone who said Facebook. And this is the next example.
LinkedIn. Or no, maybe not. Could be Facebook again, actually. Hold on.
Any other guesses?
LinkedIn, I would say.
LinkedIn, I would say, yeah.
I'd say LinkedIn.
Okay, this was a harder one. So it is Facebook again. So I will admit that is a hard one, but you can tell because, again, we're using the question, but there is some slightly informal phrasing within it. So if you look for the call to action here, it says see for yourself. That's quite an informal phrasing to use. On LinkedIn, you might say something like, for more information, please visit our website here. That's a much longer, more formal way of saying the exact same thing.
Can I just interject here as well? But it does really show that actually you don't need to get too hung up on the tone of voice. So it's really good to get that indication, but you can see here there's some articles that would be quite similar. So
Yeah.
it's just I think that's quite a good example.
This is the next example that we have.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well done, everyone. Yeah, absolutely. You can kind
I'm
of
keeping
tell.
quiet. I'm keeping quiet because a lot of these we did together too. So I'm
Yeah.
just keeping quiet because otherwise that would
You
be
already
cheating,
know.
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I do know. I'm just keeping quiet.
No, absolutely. No cheating. Yeah, you can tell by the subject matter here that the kind of language, and the really polite call to action as well. You can see please email rather than just contact or email. So well done, everybody. And I believe this is the last example.
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. Yeah, straight away you can tell it's a much shorter caption. It's got the hashtags within the main body of the text, and it's a bit more direct and kind of only sharing the absolute crucial details that people need to know. Well done, everybody. You did excellent on that. And now I thought it would be nice to just spend some time kind of putting everything that we've gone through so far into practice. If you could spend kind of 5 to 10 minutes writing a caption for a post for any of the platforms that CAN uses, and this could be on a piece of work that you've completed or done recently, or an event that you've attended for CAN, whatever is relevant to your line of work. But kind of decide on a platform you want to write it for, and then spend kind of 5-10 minutes trying to write a caption. And if anyone's comfortable, then we can feed back after and kind of discuss what we've put together. If you want to turn your screens off whilst you do it, please feel free to do so. Whatever would help.
We've had about 5 minutes. Does anybody need any longer? I think it might be good just to come up with like a top line that would, you know, for the catching the grabbers' attention, because obviously it's not very long, but we can explore more of this obviously in the workshops because we have a lot more time in the workshops.
I'm going to take a lot longer than that, one, because I'm dyslexic and it takes me ages, and two, because I'm not experienced at writing posts. So there's no way I'm going to get it done, but I will do what I can do.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's just to explore really. I mean, I've just been playing around with a question because I was in an access to food forum yesterday, and it was really interesting. Like, one of the key things was, how do we get people that want to that it's very new to them with this cost of living crisis, and they've got to be able to cook for their families, etc., but they don't know they need help. And then obviously the Access to Food, the partnership, are offering lots of different training and workshops. So it's like trying to sort of tease those sort of questions to pull that attention, to grab that attention. So I sort of came up with, do you need to make your shopping budget cover more meals? So that's the question idea. And it's about sort of, okay, what is it? If I'm in that position, which actually I am, then what is it that I need? What is the help that you don't obviously want to use the word help, because that can be quite condescending as well. If it's a new audience that you're saying, actually there's food banks available, there's courses available, but that's the sort of thing that I think you can explore with these opening questions. Right, we've got some hands up. Okay, Hannah's got a hand up.
Yeah, I had a quick go at, well, do you want to guess?
Yeah,
I'm going to read it. Want to get out and about during winter? We have great news from SEDCAT, South East Dorset Community Accessible Transport, who are now offering social outings to Poole and local areas. And then I've run out of time.
That's great. Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that. Kelly, is it Kelly who's got a hand up?
Yeah, I went to the Access to Food forum as well yesterday, so I did a post because I need to do one this week. So I've just put how can we improve access to food for the BCP area in 2023 as the sort of question.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really get much further.
Is that a LinkedIn sort of thing, because it's more professional?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Who else have we got? Somebody else has just put their hands up. Steve.
Yeah, I was going for, yeah, you sort of, like you said, the sort of heading. I said, what should be in your trustees' annual report?
Say that again. Sorry, I can.
What should be in your trustees' annual report?
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because basically you're appealing to people that, okay, what is it? Get involved. What is it that you want to do, and think about? Yeah, I like that. That's good.
So it was about, you know, to advertise, because we're going to be running something probably in March, a 1 hour webinar. So the rest of the text was saying, then come to Cannes, 1 hour free webinar with me to find out legal and good practice. So I was trying to aim as a tweet thing.
Yeah.
And that's, and this, all of these are really good different examples, aren't they, of different audiences, different events. But, and yours particularly, Steve, could be quite a tricky one, because it's, how do you make something that, you know, is it offering legal advice? It's like, well, how can you make it a bit more appealing, but actually making it so it applies to something? Then yeah, that's good.
And I think is that thing about, you know, how do you draw in the people you want to? Because the trouble in most training is you always think actually the people who really need to be there never come. So I was playing around about whether it's sort of like you want to play that sort of not Big Brother but Bad and Nasty, saying, you know, because the people who don't do it well are actually not legally compliant. So you want to sometimes partly scare people into doing something, you know, taking action, rather than thinking, oh no, ours is all right, we're fine. But I think that's always a, I think that's always a path, a sort of balanced path you have to follow, I think.
Yeah, shock tactics as well are quite something that people play with. Karen's got a hand up.
I just wanted to build on what Steve was saying about audience, because I get quite a lot of stuff that's actually not written for the audience that it's going out to. So, you know, I have to reframe it. So if e-news or something like that is directed at other voluntary sector organisations, it needs to be written to them rather than to the general public. But other things we can put on Twitter or on social media, it's slightly different. But I think really thinking about the audience that you are aiming it at is so important, and you can adjust your language accordingly. So I just wanted to kind of think how we can build on that. I had one around Twitter, which was trying to get people to think about who are the Dorset Integrated Care System and how are the VCS involved. As a leader in the VCS, I might think, oh, how are we involved? Are we involved? Oh, what's going on here? And then the rest talks about what our role is and, you know, how to find out more. We're trying to raise some interest in, you know, engaging with that, because a lot of people don't know what the hell that means, really.
Yeah.
I'm still working it out, and I go to all the meetings and I'm still working out what the hell that is as well, by the way. I think we all are.
I think the hashtags really come into play with that as well, because that kind of question, as you say, if the average member of the public wouldn't know what VCS is or what it might mean, by using those hashtags, you're really making sure your content is going to people who will understand that, who will be following it.
Hashtag Dorset hashtag. I've added in my thing, tagged NHS Dorset, and that, so, you know, a lot of with Twitter, it's me waving our flag to our funders, potential funders, and other leaders. It's me waving my flag, saying, "Look at this! Isn't this great?" And it's either about CAN or about other organisations, but it's more about that rather than Joe Public. Although we do Joe Public type tweets, but actually for me, the main focus on the Twitter sphere is because I know we've got key people follow us, and they do look at it and they do like it or they retweet it, and I think that is that's where I tend to go with the tweeting.
Yeah, no, it's a great point to always think about your audience when you're putting together a caption.
So important.
I'm a little bit conscious of time. Vicky, was there anyone else who had the hand up?
Yes, there's two. You've got Hannah has said, can you start a tweet with a tag? And then Sarah Jane's put a hand up.
Yeah, you can definitely start a tweet with a hashtag. If it's a key theme to do with the post, absolutely. No reason not to.
Okay. And then Sarah Jane?
So I'm still struggling with where we should be posting, and I'm thinking LinkedIn, because we're attracting professionals to our virtual hub, etc. But I still we've got such a wide audience for the CWC that I'd really need to sit down and work it out of where we need to put things and what we need to do with it, because there's just so much to it.
We can put them on all of them. You know, if it's one that we think actually what we're doing here is for the general public, because I know what you mean, Esther, for the general public, for other VCS organisations, for that, then we can put it across Facebook. I often do, don't I, Tilly, between us? We put it on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, and just write it slightly differently for each one. To you know, that. So you don't have to confine yourself to one medium.
No, I'm not saying that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just think I'm in a complete anxiety world with the whole thing.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what these workshops that we're going to be doing is all about. So we're going to be looking at audience. We're going to be looking at ways to talk to that audience, because it might not be social media. Looking at styles, and that's why we've put that time, and it's devoted to your actual team as well. So it's really going to be very specific on what you want to get out there. So
because I know all the theory, it's putting it into practice that's the hard bit.
Yeah, that's the idea of the workshops, SJ, is time to actually play about with it in our teams.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, we've got another hand. Andrew.
Oh yeah, just very quickly, and just another kind of tip that I always think of is when we're writing posts, just to be mindful of the abbreviations. So that's because not everyone knows what. For example, in my project, if I said, "Do you support people with SMI?" It's not everyone knows what SMI is. So or or ICB, they might not necessarily know what that abbreviation. So just to explain the context, or maybe. Yeah, that's just what I thought's helpful because I do notice that sometimes when I read posts and I think, oh, what does that mean? Those three letters, and I have to kind of investigate. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
a really good point.
Thank you.
Right, over to you, Tilly.
Thank you everybody for feeding back. I'm conscious of time, so I'll try and kind of speed through these bits. So there's a few members of the CAN team who will be responsible for scheduling the social media posts, and they're going to do that through a software called Hootsuite. So it's only certain members of the team that will be responsible for that, but I thought I would give a really quick overview as to why we do use that software, because it does have a lot of benefits for the organisation. So it means that you can schedule posts really, really far into the future, which is great for kind of campaigns. You also find inspiration for posts on kind of common themes and times of the year. It allows you to see your social media calendar as well. So all of the content that you've got scheduled to come up, but also all of the content that you've already shared. And within this one kind of integrated platform, you can see all of your tags and all of your mentions across all platforms. You can also respond to any messages that are received on any of the platforms within this one space. And you're able to measure the kind of success of your social media strategy and content through what we call analytics. We've provided training to the members of the CAN team that will be scheduling posts, but if anybody did want to learn a little bit more about it, Hootsuite Academy provide really great training. So that's a link there in the PowerPoint that will be sent out after today. I mentioned just then that through Hootsuite you can get analytics, and this essentially measures the success of your social media content across lots of different metrics, which is just another term for measurements basically. And this data is really helpful because you can adjust what you're sharing according to the data that you're receiving. So on the left is the reports that we produce for CAN at the moment. And these reports kind of share these social media analytics, which could be, how many likes your posts have had in the last month or 2 months, how many people have shared your posts, how many followers you've gained, those kinds of measurements. We also look at what's called Google Analytics, which measures how many people accessing CAN's website and what kind of pages they're clicking on. So that's really great to understand which parts of the website most people are going to. So you can kind of learn from the successes. And the reports moving forward will also cover media monitoring. So you can see kind of where the press releases from CAN are being shared across other news kind of publications. And again, we've provided training to those members of the CAN team who will be putting together these reports in order to make it kind of as visual and easy to understand. I'm just going to quickly speak through communications calendars and awareness days. These are really great opportunities for CAN to become part of bigger conversations on themes that are really important to the organisation. So when I speak about awareness days, I mean it could be Mental Health Awareness Week, it could be Pride Month, it could be Black History Month. There's so many different awareness days out there, but joining these conversations can be really great for kind of building your profile within the field and building new partnerships as well. We've put together a calendar for you for 2023, and it can be sent out after today's session. And it covers so many different awareness days that are particularly relevant to CAN, but that does include things like Volunteers Week, World Mental Health Day, and National Carers Week. But there's lots more than just that. And do feel free to add to the calendar as well. And for anybody who is putting together a particular campaign for these awareness days, I just put 2 top tips there to remember to research the theme for that year because they do change, and make sure that you're using the right hashtag because again, those do change year on year as well. As I mentioned right at the start, I do have a glossary of terms as well that will be sent out after today, which kind of defines lots of the key terms that I've used throughout the training so that you can have a document to come back to at any point if it is helpful. I hope that you've found today helpful, but there are lots of social media training out there. And on this final slide, I've just put some links to different free training that is available on topics that might be of interest to you. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I think we have no time for questions, but I'm happy to stay on if anybody does have any questions.
Just
I
to
don't know
say,
if anybody needs to go or...
Hannah's just made a quick note. We do use events to help choose our community heroes in the spotlight, and from now on, I'll be using more hashtags. Cool. Thank you. Anybody else want to add anything?
I just wanted to say I'm now going off to look at all the comms stuff that you've all been putting hopefully in the folders. So I'm now going to put my comms manager hat on and hopefully put into practice actually some of the stuff that, you know, has I've absorbed today. We're all on a, and I just want to add that we're all on a I'm going to say the J word, we're all on a learning journey here, you know, and, you know, I didn't learn about marketing or PR or comms in my training, you know, not at all. So I'm learning. So I'm a keen amateur at this, everyone, and I soak it all up. I'm really interested in it, which I think is jolly helpful. I really like it. So, you know, none of us are perfect at this, but I don't want us to get stymied in it's really hard. So let's just have a go at it, is what I'm saying. Let's just have a go at it rather than not do it, you know, because, you know, we've had some really good feedback from our new e-news. You know, it's been really well received, really, really well received. So, you know, if people don't know, especially what we do, then, you know, it's so important that we surface that. And then, of course, the other stuff that we're surfacing for the whole sector, it's so important that we do that, as well as know your stuff, which has got, you know, a lot more streamlined, a lot. So we've really moved forward a lot, and we just need to keep going.
Yeah, I think to echo what you just said, you know, working on your social media, you get to see all of the brilliant work that all of your teams do. And it's really thinking back to the start of the training where it's just about letting people know, you know, should be shouting about the different things that your team do. And it's about getting that message out there so you can really kind of just, as Karen was saying, wave the flag, you know, show people what Can is doing. And yeah, I don't want anybody to walk away from today feeling anxious about all of the different details. Really, the most important part is just getting the message out there, you know, however you do on the different platforms. And
just have a go at it.
Yeah,
you know, just have a crack at it would be my idea, my suggestion. Have a crack at it, pop it over, and if I do tinker with it, I will return it back so you can have a look at it and you can see. But I'm having to make less. I don't want to do it, but I'm having to make less changes. But if for instance it's linked to the wrong page and our website mentions someone that no longer works here, I'm not going to let that go. Just saying. Okay, so, you know, I'm not going to let that go, everyone. Or if it's written to the wrong audience or that, but actually I'm having to make less big changes so I can see people, and I'm learning too. So we're all learning, and there's no really strict right and wrong. We're all learning how to do this, and it's okay. It's all right if it doesn't go completely right 100% of the time. It's all right.
Just to let you know, Avril's got a hand up.
Yeah, I just want to say I thought that was really good what you did today, and I'm looking forward to getting the slides, because with me I have to take things and absorb them slowly. I can't keep up with the things quickly happening. My brain doesn't have the capacity to listen and read and do everything all at the same time. So when I get the slides and I can sit down and look at them and think about what it is and do it slowly in my own time, that will be really helpful, I think, for me personally. Because I'm really inexperienced, I really haven't done a lot, but it certainly made it more clear of what's expected and for each thing that we're doing. And so, yeah, that was really good. Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Shake our pom-poms, everyone. Get those pom-poms shaking.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. That's lovely. And we got a lovely message from Lucy, really helpful. Thanks so much, Tilly.
Oh, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much, both. Thank you, Tilly.
Thank you.
Vicky.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
then.
If there's no more questions, then hope everyone has a good day. And yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Thanks.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.